Welcome back to AITSM show. We are continuing with Greg today again, and we are continuing the discussion here. Greg has having more than 3 decades of experience, and he had described the progression of the technologies over his 3 decades of experience. We will be moving back to the technology progression more in this episode too, and we'll get few more insights about it. Greg is Senior Director in DX Sherpa Technologies. So we will be also asking him about his career progression as well. So moving back to the technologies, so how technologies progressed, how it changed the work in good way, or if there are challenges.
Well, with cloud technologies and virtualization, you can spin up a VM on your local computer. Even when you're spinning up an AWS instance or whatever, you have the ability to SSH or remote into that device over the cloud and have full control over it. And bandwidth capabilities and everything have allowed us to do that. But when you're doing even development work, being able to spin up a Docker instance, spin it up, tear it down, having that ability to effectively do specific types of development and do it quickly and efficiently, have your own test instance set up even on your own local computer with Docker instances. And, if it breaks, you can essentially roll back the clock and go back to a specific state. You're going to see a lot more people leveraging container technology and things like that more efficiently develop things, and tying that to automation. Once again, if something is wrong or something is broke, right, automatically roll back the clock. That's becoming, increasingly in high demand. That's more of an ease of use type scenario,
Right.
where you're not breaking your local PC, which I've seen people do way back in the day, where they're developing something and having to re-image their whole computer because they wrote a program that broke something. And it's happened. I've seen it. So now we don't have to do those types of things. So we've really progressed, even as we're developing software and things like that. It's become much easier, much more fail-safe. Obviously now we've got agile, and traditionally it was waterfall development, right? It's easier to do things in chunks, scrums, things like that, or it's much more efficient. I think the progression is continue to be more exponential. We talk about SaaS, for example, a ServiceNow platform. Now you can run your service desk completely in cloud, right? Versus any kind of on-prem software. So it's, once again, pretty exciting to see that progression and how it's really taking hold.
True. So ease of use and getting onto the cloud and SaaS product, it has made life bit easier, but IT issues also get complex over the time, like the security issues, and mainframe might not have any security issues, but now the PC had everything
Yep.
coming out of network can
Exactly.
go havoc.
Yeah, that's a good point. You think about it, even with mobile, right? Our phones essentially are PCs, right? And so to secure those devices, think about why we developed IP version 6, because we were running out of IP addresses, right? It's just the amount of endpoint devices that are out there, it's mind-boggling. And how do you control that? How do you lock that down? How do you know when things are being breached? We see companies are basically being held hostage, right? Because could be one person in a department that clicked on an email link and suddenly they're being held for essentially ransom. But that is where AI automation is being able to secure environments. Obviously, security is continually be a huge forefront for many organizations because there's always people out there who are going to challenge that, right? So I think because of the complexity, right now we're starting to see AI because it's almost too much for human intervention.
Mm.
So now you see chatbots, right? Any
Mm.
site you go onto, right? It's not even a person, right? It's a chatbot that comes
Right.
up and what do you need? You enter it in. It's got the intelligence to understand it. It knows essentially what you're looking for.
Right.
But there's times that you're trying to get help for something that could be frustrating. It's just like, man, I'd love to just talk to a human.
Mm.
So there is a little downfall to that, but I think it's just because of the complexity in that. But
Right.
as an industry, we want to have technology that is easy to a person that isn't tech savvy, right? To an end
Right.
user, if you're going on and shopping online or whatever, and that individual may not even realize that they're essentially talking to a chatbot, right? They think they're possibly talking to a human on the other end, but in most instances, you're not, as long as they're getting what they need and they're able to do whatever they need to do, order product or whatever, and they're not having to physically call into a help desk or anything like that. That
Correct.
it's obviously going away as we continue. But to support that in the back end, it's still a complex process. You know,
Right, right. So, from the service desk perspective, when a call progresses with different service personnel and handoff occurs there, many of the things would have been missed in older systems. But now, with ServiceNow and systems like that, there are some notes available from the past calls, and AI and chatbot had gone next step like a human. Like if two friends are talking, they will know the context of earlier meeting, what you have talked about, and likewise. So so I am amazed these systems have evolved towards smooth handoffs, and the next step of AI probably resolving that into something more. How actually it is helping you, say, conversational IT or conversational ITPA, how actually it is giving benefits to today's service based industries and ITSM.
I agree. And that goes back to the whole IT maturity model. Back in the day, everybody was active. We didn't have
Mm,
a choice, right?
mm,
Now the focus is to be more, service oriented, more proactive, being able to
mm,
head off problems before they even happen, having the intelligence to understand the pattern, and the software essentially is fixing the problem. And then you just get an alert, hey, this happened and we fixed it. I think a lot of this goes back to that whole maturity model and how the industry has progressed and matured. A lot of organizations, what's interesting is I still see a lot of organizations that still are in a firefighting mode. The challenge that I see now is there's a lot of great technologies and a lot of great tools out there.
mm,
But any organization you go into and have a discussion with them, I mean, they've got separate tools. The
mm,
tools don't talk, they have different interfaces. And that's the beauty of now what we're seeing is the concept of a common platform, the concept of intercommunication. Organizations may have ServiceNow, they may have Salesforce, they have a lot of these different software packages that are out there that are very valuable. But how do you tie them together? Right. And so seeing, for example, RPA technologies that now can bridge the gap between a ServiceNow focused process and relate back and automate it back through Salesforce, right? Having the different tools be able to communicate between each other and essentially work together,
mm,
right? And I think that's kind of the next progression that we're seeing. And from my experience, you go into a lot of industries and a lot of customers, and they'll have 10, 15 different types of monitoring tools that focus
mm,
on different types of things, right? They own Salesforce, they may own SAP,
right.
they have a ServiceNow help desk, they have network monitoring tools, they have APM application performance monitoring tools, they've got
Right.
tools for testing, so many of these different things. And I've seen this within the last 10 years of me being in the industry. the challenge to be able to have things talk to each other,
Correct.
right? We still see siloed groups. We still
Mm.
see the network guys, right? I go into meetings and I'm talking to server teams, network teams, application teams. They joke around. Yeah, well, they always blame the network first, right? Network's always the problem. But being able to pull data from all those the separate sources and
Right.
make sense of it, it's getting better, but it's still there. I see so many industries, so many companies in such a reactive mode, and they
Correct.
know they need to get beyond it, but it's still a challenge.
So it is still like a lot more to go and a lot more things to change. So if someday you have a power, a magical power with you, which can change one or more things in this service industries, what thing you will change actually? What wish you will have?
Boy. Wow. So that would be my retirement and having 3 houses in wherever I want. uh, live next door to Bill Gates. I don't
Uh,
know. I mean, wow, that's a good question. What's interesting, and if you look at a company like ServiceNow and how they've progressed, and I even see this in companies like Splunk, right? Their focus is a core platform, right? And that platform essentially does the automation. It allows the connections into various other technologies and things like that. I think I've always kind of, through my days of working with various companies, it would be like, God, it would just be nice if we just had a common platform,
right.
regardless of the user who's using it, whether it's an HR person, whether it's an IT person, whether it's a developer, right? You log into the platform and it all looks the same, and it extracts data from whatever tool you're using that you love. You're pry it out of your cold dead hands because I'm not getting rid of this monitoring tool, but let's allow it to talk to that common platform. And I think those companies and the ServiceNows, the Splunks of the world, I think are moving in the direction of where organizations want to be, and they want to be able to have that same interface so that the usability of the product, it looks the same, it feels the same, and all of the automation is already there, it's built in, right? So I don't know if I have necessarily the better mousetrap yet, but I think the direction of where those types of companies are going is what the future needs. But once again, I think that being able to continually, you know, progress automation, I think a lot of organizations still are challenged with that. And I don't know what the magic bullet is, to be honest with you. But I mean, I think that's a direction that, if you talked to me 10 years ago, that was something that was like, man, if we could just have that common interface, that common portal or something where you can look at data regardless of
Right.
who you were, and
Correct.
it's the same look and feel, and all of that back end stuff is within the platform, right?
Right.
So,
Really,
that's kind of
really.
where I'm seeing myself.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really interesting and useful insight. Like communications within the different systems, always a challenge. Maybe within the machines and within humans also.
Yeah, yeah, it's just exciting to see where, how the industry has changed. And I even remember Y2K and COBOL programmers were a premium back then, right? Just all of the different things, now we saw, with pandemic, right? Suddenly remote work is a huge, need out there. Having worked in my focus when I was at ServiceNow was in healthcare, being able to once again provide even remote medicine, right? Those are all challenges and things that come up that suddenly the world, we shift gears, right? And so 4 years ago, it was like people may have talked about a pandemic, we didn't know what it was, right? And I think the planning and things like that just weren't there, and suddenly it happened, and suddenly we have to adjust accordingly. And I think we're going to continue to see those types of things, depending on how the world changes and what happens, and hopefully goes towards the better.
Correct. Right. Right.
um, Hopefully we're looking up now versus
Mm,
we've had some challenges here in the last 2 years, but I think we're
mm,
moving forward with it and we'll continue to do that. But I think the industry will change accordingly
mm,
to world events and what things happen. And as those needs arise, we'll see them. But the good thing that I think came out of this is the remote work capabilities, people being able to be home
mm,
with their families. And
mm.
I think it's kind of brought us together in a way. So I guess that's one positive to look out of it. And I
Yes.
think technologies had to change accordingly.
Right. Yeah, and actually, sometimes we need that push right from the
Mm-hmm.
outside to
Yep.
actually make a change. Right
Yep.
now, many companies and maybe people were maybe harder to change, but
Mm-hmm.
pandemic had that power
Yeah.
and it had made them change actually their ways of business model, their way of operating and working with constraints actually. A lot of
Yeah.
constraints, all the supply chains, everything has been distorted.
Yeah.
Communication had been online and no human touch there, and so everything came into a kind of a spin of everything.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And at the end of the day, I go back to that IT maturity model, right? We always
Right.
say we don't want to be reactive, but at the end of
Correct.
the day, we don't know what's going to happen. So you're always going to have to react at some point. And it's just the nature of the world and humanity. And it's just the way things are. But if you react and you can react quickly, I think that's a very valuable thing to be able to do. So we saw that it's been challenging, but I think a lot of organizations are starting to embrace things like RPA technologies and AI. We definitely need those technologies. And as well, the traditional office settings are starting to go away. People are wanting to work at home more. So the ability to provide and serve those individuals when they're having issues or problems and make their experience easy, that's kind of the progression I see moving forward. So it's interesting times and we're progressing forward from it. It's going to be interesting to see where the industry goes within the next 5 years. I think it's going to be really cool technology that's going to be out there. The focus around making sure things are secure, going to continually be in the forefront. Once again, making things easier to use, making the experience easy. That's going to move forward. My career's been pretty exciting to see how things have developed and changed all over all those years. And it's definitely been fun and been lucrative for me. I like to tell everybody I'm a golfer, so I like to tell people that I'm on the 17th hole of my career. I'm going to play out hole 17, go to hole 18. And after that, I'm going to decide, do I want to play another 9 holes or do I just go sip margaritas on a beach? I don't know. I started out a consulting business with a friend of mine. We were in our 20s. The challenge we had is a lot of people didn't want to take us serious because we were just a bunch of young kids, but we were kind of geeky kids that like technology. And that's kind of what's got me started in the industry because we had knowledge that a lot of people didn't have. And we leveraged that knowledge and made money off of it, right? And the progression from there is I always enjoyed technology. I've done several different roles. I was a systems engineer. A lot of my career was pre-sales because I enjoyed the sales part of things. Being a sales guy is a rough gig sometimes. The good reps are, they're phenomenal, but I still like the technology. I like to still kind of touch and feel the technical part of things. And that's why I did a ton of pre-sales work. I just enjoyed it, being the part of helping to close deals, working with technical people within organizations, trying to show the value of software, whatever it is you're selling. It was definitely an enjoyable part of things in that. But I think as my career progressed in that, I wanted to take the things that I've learned and kind of, you know, lead others. So being a director of sales right now, working with my inside sales teams and business development folks, it's been fun to lead them. My role now, essentially, I feel like I've gone back to my roots, starting from ground zero. We're building the US as a territory, and it's something I did first thing in my career. And here I'm back to it, and it's fun. It's exciting. I've really enjoyed what I'm doing, and it's always a learning process. You never stop learning. You can't get too set in your ways, which can be a challenge, I think, as you get older. But, change happens and you've got to be able to adjust to it and move forward. But my career's been fantastic. I've worked for startup companies. I've been in situations where I've had companies go bankrupt, close their doors. I've worked with high growth companies. So I've definitely seen a lot of change and progression along my career, but it's definitely been exciting. And I'm a guy that was a mechanical engineer. And I kind of always say I fell into the IT industry just because the love for computer software and technology and went in that direction. So I have no regrets. It's been a great journey.
So maybe towards our conclusion, it's a really insightful talk, and we actually talked about the progression of technologies and career and what things change. So one of my questions was like, if you have your past self, or maybe any room full of young people there who are actually starting where you have started 3 decades back. So what would be your advice?
The one thing that I've seen when we talk about AI, for example, there's a shift because what I've seen and what I've worked with artificial intelligence and automation, there's going to be a huge need for data scientists. And it's a very different animal compared to an engineering or more of an IT focused background. If you want to be like the smart guy, become a data scientist. And it is something that, as I've worked with artificial intelligence and the various types of AI technology that's out there, for me to even understand how that works, I just know that it works. But all of that stuff in the background is all driven by data science, right? Data scientists are the people that are driving it.
True.
So if you want to really be the smart guy, go and become a data scientist.
Yeah. That's a very useful advice there. Right now, we are progressing towards AI, machine learning, and making the sense of data. Actually, data
Yeah,
could be the new oil for the world. So, yeah,
yeah.
that's a pretty useful advice there and useful insights we have over this discussion right now. Thanks very much, Greg, for being here on our show and sharing your experiences. So, any last points you want to say, or maybe any question should you think I would have asked?
Being in the industry as long as I have, I've enjoyed our discussion. I think folks that are started in it when I did, and we've definitely, seen a lot of things. I've seen guys that started out as computer technicians that are now
Mm,
CIOs of companies, right?
right,
And watching those people and people that are my friends progress to that level it's really cool. And I think a lot of the young people coming up in that, I think my generation, I think we were the first, because I remember my parents just didn't like technology. Like, I don't know if I want to touch this thing, I might break it, right? I think our generation, we were really the first that said, this is cool. I like this. I want to learn about it. I want to understand it. Now you see the young people coming up, like my nieces and nephews, they would just pick up a piece of technology and have it figured out, which is amazing to see. But this new generation, watching their abilities to be able to truly pick something up, understand it, see how it works. My kids, and I'm sure my grandkids, technology is a way of life for them, right? And we didn't quite have that initially growing up, but I think it's going to be exciting because I think a lot of the future generations that are coming up and the young people that I work with, it's really amazing to see how they've embraced technology. So it's exciting for me to work with young people and to see how they view things and their ideas towards things. And definitely it's fun for me to just work with all the different people throughout. I mean, people I've met throughout my career, and it's been a great journey. So I'm still enjoying it.
Thanks a lot, Greg. Thanks for being on our show. It was very insightful interview and a lot of learning.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Anna, and thanks for having me.
So, audience, if you love this conversation, so please share it generously and give us feedback. What are the questions to be asked to our IT pros? And we will keep coming with more and more interesting topics. Watch this space for more. Thanks. Bye bye.